Another ToyLanta has come and gone, and it was pretty awesome. Events started on Friday night for 3-day ticket holders with a big swap meet. Saturday morning began with an extremely long line leading into the main vendor's room where there were all kinds of toys to be found. Everything from boxed Shogun Warriors and G.I. Joe figures to Star Wars, Thundercats, Secret Wars, Terminator figures, Star Trek, more G.I. Joe, Justice League, Kiss, X-Men, a little bit of everything, you name it. This vendor was carrying a lot of Lego products, everything from loose to boxed and bagged sets. A little bit of everything for the Lego collector here. We had G.I. Joe figures, vintage G.I. Joe figures, that came complete with their card backs, some of them even originally carded. Some carded Silverhawks figures and some boxed G.I. Joes. A whole lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles here, a variety of figures from vintage to modern, and a variety of prices. Some of these guys are even still in the package. Some vintage Star Wars toys, vintage Star Wars comic, vintage Star Wars vehicles, some more carded Star Wars figures, Masters of the Universe, Castle Grayskull, and a few figures, Thundercats, more recent boxed figures, as well as some Marvel Legends boxed figures, Transformers, newer Transformers here, Thundercats, some of the more modern Thundercats, as well as some more Marvel Legends figures still in the package, and several boxes of miscellaneous figures here. A bunch of display cases of random G.I. Joe from the 60s and 70s, the 12-inch stuff. I think I see some Major Matt Mason figure there in the background. More G.I. Joe and other 12-inch figures here. And some more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, both packaged and loose, as well as some Star Wars figures, I believe, from the 90s. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, some other carded figures that I can't quite make out. A Hulk puzzle or game. Street Sharks, that's something you don't see every day. GoBot's Lunchbox. Crusher figure up there in the corner. Some more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stuff, Star Wars cups, some more 12-inch figures. Some of these look like G.I. Joe or G.I. Joe knockoffs. More Marvel Legends, a box of miscellaneous 12-inch stuff, some Mark's Best of the West figures. Here are some bodies for G.I. Joe figures, as well as a variety of parts and pieces. I love the Legends of Cthulhu line. I don't think I've ever seen a Cthulhu figure in person before. Some 12-inch horror movie figures, a whole lot of the monsters. Ghost of Frankenstein, Frankenstein and the Wolfman, Misfits Jerry Only reaction figure, still in the package. Star Wars Lunchbox, some vintage trucks. Ooh, the Spider-Man Crime Lab for use with Mego and Mego-like figures. A RoboCop police gun. Looks like the Spider-Man Crime Lab was $75. I had one of those as a kid. Some wrestling figures and a Superman lunchbox. A B9 robot, some more wrestling figures. More lunchboxes, Mask and superheroes. More Transformers, another Star Wars boxed piece, 2000X Castle Grayskull, a Jaws set. Here's some more G.I. Joe, as well as some carded Voltron action figures, Twilight Zone, Army of Darkness, Ghostbusters, Transformers, Jurassic Park, a lot of Megos here, Masters of the Universe vintage Modulok figure, and some race cars, a whole bunch of loose G.I. Joe figures, some GoBots and Masters of the Universe and Transformers booklets, more 12-inch Joes. Ooh, carded Superpowers figures, Rambo loose figures, Godzilla, more Transformers up here, Ghostbusters Firehouse, that's a nice piece. Man, some more carded Superpowers figures as well as carded Secret Wars figures. Hobgoblin, that's an expensive one. More loose Star Wars pieces and more Marvel Legends. I guess there were a lot of Marvel Legends at this show. More Jurassic Park, G.I. Joe, more modern boxed stuff, as well as some vintage 12-inch. Wow, a whole lot of vintage 12-inch. 3 3/4-inch Star Wars figures, and 3 3/4-inch O-ring G.I. Joes. There are a lot to choose from. Man, even more 3 3/4-inch vintage G.I. Joes, as well as some still on the card. I was always a big fan of the Dreadnoks, so Monkey Wrench is a cool one for me to see. G.I. Joe Soldiers of the World Talking G.I. Joe. That's a really cool piece. As well as some packaged G.I. Joe sets from the 60s and 70s. More packaged 12-inch G.I. Joe sets. A boxed Soldier of the World figure. A whole bunch of boxed and loose 12-inch figures, as well as lots of sets. Man, these sets can get pretty pricey, but those are some very cool pieces. There are a whole lot of box sets here. More 12-inch vintage 60s and 70s G.I. Joes and pieces to go along with them. Feels like just about anything you could want G.I. Joe related, you could have found at ToyLanta. Some Adventure Team hats, diorama pieces, it looks like, as well as some more 12-inch related figures. Whole lot of 12-inch stuff at this show. Very cool and expensive tank for the 1/6 military figures. More 12-inch, looks like World War II figures. Pieces and parts and uniforms for different 12-inch figures. And more boxed 12-inch figures and vehicles. Quite a bit of different 12-inch related accessories. It looks like just about anything you could want for your 12-inch action figures could be found here. More vintage stuff, including an action nurse, Cadillacs and dinosaurs, a variety of really cool loose Marvel figures, as well as Superpowers figures loose. Some very cool stuff in there. Star Wars Monopoly, a variety of video games. Star Trek pieces. Oh, a Buck Rogers vehicle from the 1980, I believe, Buck Rogers line. Barbie figures. With the Barbie movie out, I wonder if that affected sales for the Barbie figures this year. But a bunch of boxed Barbie stuff. I don't know enough about Barbie to really comment on what exactly we're looking at, but it does look like a variety, and I would guess none of this is really old. Here's some more G.I. Joe stuff. Looks like some vehicle drivers with their original package, and quite a few loose figures with the cards encased in plastic. Those figures display really well. Nice. Oh, a bat. I really need to get a new bat. Those are some awesome carded figures right there. Oh, a Fun School figure. Some Tiger Force figures. You don't see many septic tanks, modified version of the Hiss tank. Mortal Kombat figures. Cosmic Legions. Very cool. Looks like this is the Four Horsemen's table. These guys recently have been doing their Mythic Legions line, and even more recently, their Cosmic Legions figures, which are relatively new. They have a history working previously with Masters of the Universe, among other toy lines. But the Mythic Legions and now the Cosmic Legions figures all look extremely cool. They had quite a line to pick up Mythic Legions figures over the weekend. There are definitely some cool ones. I think they had a variety, mostly of their more recent releases, and maybe a few of the older ones available. But a lot of people were picking up Mythic Legions figures. And from looking at them, I can see why. They are very cool. I have quite a few of them myself. Some Mythic Legion skeletons. Very cool. Oh, wow. Indiana Jones Well of Souls still in the box. That is a rare piece. I would love to own one, but they are way too expensive. Some more G.I. Joe and Star Wars. A lot more of the vintage 12-inch G.I. Joe stuff. Still in the packages, as well as some loose stuff. And G.I. Joe patches. Some more Star Wars. It looks like carded vintage Star Wars figures, as well as some loose figures. And a bin of random figures. A Lost in Space Milton Bradley game. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing. More carded G.I. Joes. Those look like they may be not original vintage G.I. Joes, but maybe something more modern. Oh, some Black Major figures there. Those are cool. And more Star Wars boxed stuff, vintage, as well as modern Star Wars. Some G.I. Joe classifieds in the box. Lone Ranger figures, as well as a custom G.I. Joe 12-inch Lone Ranger. Some Fighting Furies Pirates. More boxed G.I. Joe. Oh, the Butch and Sundance figures in the package. Very cool. You don't see those much. More Star Wars figures loose. More G.I. Joe 12-inch 60s and 70s figures. Bullet Man. More 12-inch Joes. Some more vintage Star Wars figures. Very cool. Batman. Wrestling figures. Superman Mego. An over-the-top figure. More 12-inch G.I. Joe stuff. And a bunch of outfits for G.I. Joe. It looks like if you were looking for any kind of G.I. Joe anything, there was a good chance you would find it at this show. A whole box of stuff for $10 or $15. Two different boxes, I should say. More miscellaneous bins of action figures. More Barbie. Some VHS tapes. More Star Wars loose figures. A tank. An Incredible Hulk plush toy. Some more wrestling figures, as well as some loose Superpowers figures. More loose G.I. Joe figures, 3 3/4 inch Real American Hero, all kinds of Masters of the Universe stuff there. Some Super Joe, that looks more modern. Yeah, all of this stuff looks like more recent. That is definitely an homage to Bullet Man there. Strike Force. These are some new figures that came out recently. Looks like they've got some cool figures on the Strike Force team. And a variety of more modern 1/6 scale outfits, accessories, boots, etc. This must be the Cotswold booth. You can find Cotswold collectibles online, and I would imagine purchase the majority of the different items here from them online. There are a bunch of 1/6 scale heads available and 1/6 scale bodies as well. Various glasses for different properties, miscellaneous action figures. Ooh, a Kraken from Clash of the Titans, as well as a bunch of Shogun Warriors. Those guys are awesome. A variety of different loose action figures. More boxes of G.I. Joe accessories, Star Wars figures, G.I. Joe, a couple more Butch and Sundance figures, Zorro still in the package, a couple of Metal Men, more G.I. Joe loose figures, some really good ones in there as well. A whole lot of loose G.I. Joe figures, 3 3/4 inch. More Star Wars vintage figures. There's that Kraken. That guy is awesome. You don't see a whole lot of those around, and when you do, they're pretty pricey. Some carded Migos. Oh, the Fortress of Fangs from the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons line. Transformer in the box and complete. Very faded box. Some more Migos. These are loose Migos. More loose Star Wars figures. Mr. T, I pitied the fool. Some more carded vintage Star Wars figures. An Empire Strikes Back AT-AT Walker. More carded G.I. Joe 3 3/4 inch, including a Tiger Force figure in there. Some more Transformers. An entire case of vintage Star Wars figures. Centurions. You don't see a whole lot of those. More wrestling figures and a Sectar's Warrior. More wrestlers. Child's Play. Some new Mego figures still in the package. Shogun Warriors, Shogun Warrior. An interesting looking Mego-like Hordak. All kinds of reaction figures, 3 3/4 inch style stuff. Some more Migos. Ooh, the Monsterizer for the Remco monsters. More Shogun Warriors. These guys, you would think, were more common than they are from how many of them there are at this show. You really don't see a whole lot of them. But it looks like there were a lot of them at this show. A Shogun Warrior Skeletor. That's wild. Sectar's re-releases, including Stellara, who didn't make it into the original line. A very beat-up Shogun Warrior. More 12-inch figures. More 12-inch figures. Vintage G.I. Joe. Vintage G.I. Joe accessories, outfits, helmets, boots, and figures. A whole bin of various G.I. Joe figures. And these cards had outfit sets on them. Bunch of Transformers. Looks like more modern Transformer stuff. Not a whole lot of vintage Transformers. Most of the Transformers I'm seeing are more modern. Here's some more carded 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joes. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles still on the card. Very cool stuff here. Gabriel Tonto figure. Some more Transformers. Here's some older Transformers. I was just saying there weren't many of them at the show. I'm guessing that a lot of these are loose Marvel Legends. I'm not as familiar with the different Marvel superheroes that are available. Pops. More Pops. Even more Pops. Oh, some more Secret Wars carded figures, including 2 Falcon figures. Oh, wow, an Iceman. I don't even have him loose. Daredevil. Spider-Man. There's a Firestorm. Indiana Jones line. Some more carded G.I. Joe and Star Wars vintage figures. Savage Crucible. The guys that made these figures were actually present at the show so that you could buy Savage Crucible merchandise from the creators. Graphic novel and a variety of other stuff, as well as the figures themselves. I believe these guys, I want to say they did a Kickstarter, but these are some very cool figures that look a little bit like the Mythic Legions figures to me. I mean, they're different, but it seems like you could have these guys on the same shelf and they would look cool. Very professional looking sign. Their display was top notch. There's that Modulok. I think it's the same one. Oh, maybe not. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons figures still on the card. Very cool. Silverhawks still on the card. G.I. Joe. Tunnel Rat Night Force on the card. A bunch of loose vintage Star Wars figures. Superpowers figures. Carded Superpowers figures, including a Shazam. A bunch of Transformers, a Mask Stiletto still in the box. Oh, Mad Monsters Frankenstein in the box. The only one of these that I have in the box is the Mummy. I have all of them loose, but those boxes, the art is awesome. More box G.I. Joes, Masters of the Universe loose figures. There's a bunch of them there. I don't see anything super rare in that particular batch. More Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Battlestar Galactica. A variety of loose 3 3/4 inch figures. Some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles here, loose. Another carded Zorro character action figures. Some Starcom carded figures back there. Mego Lizard. Mego Mixelplick. These guys who made these figures were here as well. Warriors of the Kingdom. Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. Very cool figures. They remind me a little bit of Masters of the Universe Classics. I think that these guys would also probably look good standing next to your Mythic Legions figures or on their own. Animal Warriors of the Kingdom figures are very cool, and they have some great promotional signs as well. Very cool stuff there. Looks like more Marvel Legends loose action figures. And some more carded Marvel figures. More cars. I don't know very much about the cars. Here's some more Barbie stuff that I know nothing about. It looks like it's probably more modern. The Simpsons. Haven't seen a lot of Simpsons stuff at the show. Some, not a whole lot. Wow, there are a bunch of carded Simpsons figures right there. Disney Comics. And the $6 Million Man booth. This is probably a booth that you will see at every ToyLanta show. Everything you can imagine from the $6 Million toy line, and plenty of it. A lot of this stuff is autographed. Some of it, I believe, is probably one of a kind. And it's just about anything you can imagine from $6 Million Man. What did I pick up at ToyLanta this year? Well, I picked up 4 Joes, Wetsuit, Hawk version 2, Zaymot, and Payload version 2 for $10. Also, the Special Mission Brazil version of Dial Tone, although both of his thumbs are broken, and I think this may be the backpack for the regular figure, he was only $5. I picked up a bunch of random G.I. Joe accessories, plus the weapon for the Battle Beast Rocky Rhino, all for $10. I got a Hydro Viper for $5, a complete Slice figure for $5, Red Dog for $6, and Ambush for $3. And rounding out my G.I. Joe pickups, a friend of mine hooked me up with a complete Crocmaster. He even has his file card and the typically missing air hose. Another friend of mine gave me a vintage Chewbacca complete with his gun, and in the Masters of the Universe Classics line, I picked up a Grizzlor without his accessories for $20 and was given several more Classics figures from a friend, Chief Carnivus, 2 Horde Troopers, one had extra parts, and an awesome Trapjaw, which also came with extra parts. With all that cool stuff, I'm very happy with my ToyLanta finds this year. Please give this video a thumbs up, and if you have a chance, it would be great if you would share it on social media. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notifications bell so you'll know when I post new videos. As always, thanks for watching.